Most people are influenced by the world around them more than they realize. Society uses pressure, media, trends, and fear to guide how people think, speak, and act. But there's one personality type that quietly resists all of that, the INFJ. INFJs don't look like rebels. They aren't loud, confrontational, or dramatic. But on the inside, they are hardwired to think for themselves. They follow their own path, shaped by deep thought, emotional awareness, and personal values. While others are pulled in different directions by outside voices, the INFJ turns inward. It's not that they try to be different. They just are. They can't ignore what feels wrong. They can't pretend to believe in something just because everyone else does. And they won't sell out their truth for the sake of fitting in. In today's world, where many people are influenced without even knowing it, INFJs stand out. They move through life quietly, but with a clear sense of what matters to them. That's why society can't easily brainwash them. The usual tricks, fear, popularity, fake news, emotional manipulation, don't work the same way in INFJs. This video looks at 6 deep reasons why the INFJ resists influence. These reasons come from who they are at the core. They're not about effort or resistance. They're about natural insight, strong inner values, and emotional clarity. If you've ever felt like you see through the world's noise while everyone else is caught up in it, this might explain why. And if you're not an INFJ, this video will help you understand why they're often seen as quiet but unshakable. Let's start with the first reason, the one that lives at the very heart of how an INFJ sees the world. Reason number 1, ingrained inner moral compass. Every INFJ has a built-in moral compass, stars, that guides their decisions. This isn't something they learn from others. It isn't forced on them by rules or religion. It's something they feel deeply from a young age. And it doesn't change easily. This inner compass is shaped by their dominant function, introverted intuition. That function makes them reflect, connect ideas, and sense patterns. But it also gives them a strong internal sense of what's right and wrong. It's not always based on logic. It's based on what feels true in a deep and personal way. Most INFJs know when something is off, even if they can't explain it right away. They'll walk away from people, places, or groups that go against their values, even if everything looks fine on the surface. It's not about appearances. It's about the feeling underneath. Because of this, society can't easily sway them with trends or popular ideas. They don't believe something just because it's on the news or in a viral video. If it doesn't match what they feel to be true, they question it. They reflect. They dig deeper. Even when they were young, most INFJs had moments where they disagreed with adults or peers, not out of rebellion, but out of instinct. They saw cruelty and didn't understand why others allowed it. They noticed injustice, even in small things. And they remembered those moments. This moral clarity makes it very hard to control an INFJ. You can pressure them. You can shame them. But if something doesn't align with their truth, they won't go along with it. They may not argue back or make a scene, but they won't follow blindly. This trait can be lonely. INFJs often feel like outsiders because they see and feel things others ignore. They might be the only one in the room who questions what's happening. But that discomfort doesn't stop them. In fact, it often strengthens them. Their values are not based on what looks good. They're based on what feels right deep inside. And once that line is drawn, no amount of outside influence can push them across it. That's why INFJs can't be brainwashed by society. Their truth comes from within, and that's where they always return when the world tries to change them. Reason number 2. Heightened emotional and intuitive radar. INFJs don't just hear what people say, they feel what people don't say. They pick up on energy, body language, tone, and even silence. This emotional and intuitive radar is always on, and it helps them sense when something isn't real. This sensitivity comes from two key parts of their personality: their introverted intuition and extroverted feeling. Together, these functions help them read between the lines. They notice when someone's words don't match their emotions. They feel when a group is faking agreement. They sense when a message is being pushed for the wrong reason. That awareness protects them. It keeps them from blindly trusting emotional manipulation. Society often uses fear, urgency, or hype to control people. But INFJs feel the tension behind those tactics. Instead of getting pulled in, they pause and pay attention to what's not being said. Even in large groups, INFJs can feel when something is off. If a crowd is being pushed toward one idea, they'll notice who's hesitating, who's quiet, and who's just following along. They might not say anything, but they won't ignore it either. This emotional radar also works in media. INFJs often spot fake emotions in ads, interviews, or speeches. They feel when someone's smile is forced or when a message is meant to distract. They don't always have proof, but their gut tells them to be cautious. Because of this, it's very hard to sell an INFJ on something that isn't true. You can't trick them with flashy words or emotional music. If the core message feels wrong, they won't trust it. This ability to feel beyond the surface also helps INFJs protect others. They can see when someone is being manipulated or when a situation is unhealthy. They might step in quietly or just stay present, but they often notice things before anyone else does. INFJs may be quiet, but they are rarely unaware. Their emotional and intuitive radar is one of their greatest strengths. And when society tries to twist the truth or hide something behind emotion, INFJs feel it, and that feeling is usually right. Reason number 3, natural resistance to conformity. INFJs might blend in, but they rarely conform. At first glance, they may seem like they fit into the group. They're polite, calm, and often easy to be around. But underneath that quiet presence is a mind that's always asking, "Does this feel right to me?" This internal questioning is part of who they are. Even when they appear to go along with something, they're observing it with caution. They're listening, but not absorbing. They're present, but not persuaded. Unlike some people who follow trends without thinking, INFJs pause. They don't accept ideas just because everyone else does. In fact, the more pressure they feel to think a certain way, the more they pull back and analyze it. They have no interest in being part of a crowd if it means losing their own voice. This resistance to conformity shows up early. As children or teens, INFJs often feel different from their peers. They may try to fit in for a while, but it usually feels fake. Over time, they learn to stop trying so hard and start accepting their differences. By adulthood, this resistance becomes stronger. INFJs value truth, meaning, and depth. They don't care about popularity or surface approval. If an idea feels shallow or forced, they'll walk away, even if it costs them social points. Society often rewards people who follow the rules without question. But INFJs find it hard to follow rules that don't make sense. They don't rebel loudly. They just quietly choose their own path. If that means stepping outside of social norms, they're okay with it. This doesn't mean INFJs are always right or never influenced. But they're slow to accept ideas. They think deeply and feel strongly. That combination makes it hard for outside voices to override their internal sense of truth. Even when they don't speak up, INFJs are thinking for themselves. They see when the crowd is being led, and they step back. They might not fight it, but they won't follow it either. That quiet resistance makes INFJs very hard to control. Reason number 4, deep need for alignment. Between belief and action. INFJs don't just care about what people say, they care about what people do. And more than anything, they look for alignment between the two. If someone says they believe in kindness, but treats others with disrespect, the INFJ sees that. And once they see that gap, it's hard to unsee it. This applies not just to individuals, but to society as a whole. INFJs often feel uneasy with institutions, media, or trends that say one thing and do another. They notice the contradictions, even if others ignore them. And those contradictions keep them from buying in. For example, if society pushes messages about unity but promotes fear and division, INFJs won't trust it. If a movement says it supports change but acts in harmful ways, they step back. They aren't fooled by nice words or emotional appeals. They want real integrity. This need for alignment also exists within the INFJ themselves. They hold themselves to the same standard. If they feel out of alignment with their own values, they go quiet. They step back. They do the hard work of realigning before moving forward again. That self-honesty makes them hard to fool. If society tries to sell an idea that doesn't match real action, the INFJ spots it. They don't always speak out, but they mentally disconnect. They no longer give their energy, time, or trust to things that feel dishonest. INFJs are idealists, but they're not naive. They hope for the best, but they see the cracks in the system. That vision isn't negative, it's clear. They can love humanity while questioning how society operates. And that balance helps them stay centered. People who rely on image, branding, or surface messaging often find it hard to influence INFJs. That's because INFJs are looking at the full picture. They want truth, not appearance. They want action, not performance. This deep need for alignment protects them from being mentally pulled in by things that don't hold up under closer examination. Reason number 5, authentic complexity over simplistic narratives. Society loves simplicity. It pushes people to choose sides, pick labels, and follow clear-cut ideas. But INFJs don't think that way. They live in complexity. They feel multiple truths at once. And they're comfortable in the grey areas. That's why they don't respond well to messaging that's too black and white. If something sounds too perfect, too certain, or too absolute, the INFJ pulls back. They know life doesn't work like that. They have lived enough to understand that truth is layered. INFJs hold multiple thoughts in their minds at the same time. They can disagree with a system while still caring about the people in it. They can feel frustrated with someone and still show compassion. They don't need to reduce life to a simple formula in order to understand it. This trait makes it very hard for society to shape how they think. Because while others might follow the loudest voice, INFJs are asking deeper questions. What's not being said? What's the real reason behind this? Who benefits from this message? Simplistic narratives are often used to control people. They remove nuance and replace it with fear or loyalty. But INFJs resist that. Not because they want to argue, but because they want truth. And truth rarely fits into a slogan. This love for complexity shows up in the INFJ's relationships, work, and worldview. They're not quick to judge. They ask questions. They listen. They observe. And then they form their own opinion, often different from the crowd. Even when they agree with a cause, they still look at both sides. They want to make sure it holds up under close thought. That habit keeps them from being easily swayed, even by messages that seem good on the surface. INFJs are not immune to influence, but they're hard to fool. Because once they spot a message that's too simple, they start pulling it apart. And once they do that, control becomes impossible. Reason number 6, solitude as reflection, not escape. Some people avoid being alone. They need background noise, social input, or constant activity to feel okay. INFJs are the opposite. They need solitude, not as a way to hide, but as a space to return to themselves. And that space is where their mind becomes strongest. Solitude for the INFJ isn't loneliness. It's fuel. It gives them space to think clearly, feel deeply, and reflect without interruption. In that quiet, they process everything they've seen and heard. They question what they've absorbed. They decide what stays and what gets thrown out. This regular retreat into quiet thought is one of the biggest reasons society can't brainwash the INFJ. While many people are constantly reacting to the outside world, INFJs step back. They create distance. And in that distance, they find clarity. During their alone time, INFJs often reevaluate the messages they've been given. They think through opinions, revisit conversations, and reflect on what's true for them. If something felt off, they notice. If something didn't match their values, they remember. That kind of processing takes time, and space. INFJs often prefer silence over noise. They choose depth over distraction. And by doing that, they strengthen their ability to think independently. This habit also protects them from emotional manipulation. When society tries to push a message that relies on pressure or hype, INFJs can sense it. But instead of reacting, they pause. They go into solitude. They ask themselves, does this match what I believe? If it doesn't, they let it go. Solitude also allows INFJs to recharge their energy. When they're rested and centered, they're much harder to influence. Their boundaries get stronger. Their clarity gets sharper. And they move through the world with quiet confidence. While others may become overwhelmed by the noise of the world, INFJs often grow stronger in the silence. That strength makes them less reactive, more thoughtful, and far harder to control. For the INFJ, solitude is not escape. It's strategy. And it's one of the most powerful tools they have to stay mentally free. INFJs don't resist society by shouting or picking fights. They resist by thinking, feeling, reflecting, and quietly choosing what's true for them. That's what makes them so difficult to influence. In this video, we explored 6 deep reasons why society can't brainwash the INFJ. Their strong inner compass, emotional radar, quiet resistance to conformity, demand for integrity, love of complexity, and need for solitude all work together to protect their mind. INFJs don't just live differently, they think differently. They're not driven by trends, attention, or social approval. They're driven by something deeper, something internal that doesn't fade when the world gets loud. And that's rare. In a world filled with noise, speed, and pressure, INFJs move slowly and truthfully. They ask hard questions. They pay attention to emotions. And they always return to what feels real. If you're an INFJ, you might not always feel understood. But your way of thinking is powerful. It protects you in ways others don't always see. And it gives you a strength that can't be shaken by the outside world. If you saw yourself in these reasons or learned something new, let us know in the comments. What helps you stay grounded in your truth? What outside pressure have you walked away from? Thanks for watching, and remember, being quietly unshakable is sometimes the strongest stance of all.